The moment the man responsible for abducting a young woman and subjecting her to unimaginable horrors was sentenced to 60 years in prison, a wave of relief washed over the community. They believed that he was finally off the streets, no longer posing a threat to anyone. Little did they suspect that this was merely the beginning, as the sinister secrets of his atrocious acts were yet to be unveiled. The 60-year sentence turned out to be just the tip of the iceberg, as shocking revelations continued to emerge, unraveling a twisted tale that took years to fully comprehend. Who was this man, and what were the deeply concealed secrets he held? Texas, the second largest state in the United States, is renowned for its diverse landscape, rich history, and vibrant culture. From the iconic deserts of West Texas to the bustling urban centers like Houston and Dallas, the state offers a plethora of attractions. However, Texas has also witnessed its fair share of notorious crimes. For years, Interstate 45 in Texas has been a haunting place, instilling fear in the hearts of many. The highway that stretches between Galveston and Houston is notorious for its connection to numerous unsolved murders throughout the years. Deputy Chief Josh Rogers from Texas has stated that 1997 was an especially deadly year, with a high number of incidents occurring along this route. However, the question remains, what truly happened here? To delve into this matter, let us begin with the case involving Laura Smither. On April 3, 1997, at approximately 9:00 a.m., 12-year-old Laura Smither asked her mother for permission to go for a jog alone. Little did her mother know that granting this request would lead to enduring pain. Laura, who was raised in the city of Friendswood, Texas, by her parents Bob and Gay Smither, had a happy childhood alongside her younger brother David. She was known for her kindness and gentle nature. Laura excelled academically and possessed a remarkable talent for ballet. Her dream of becoming a ballerina was on the verge of becoming a reality, as she had recently been accepted into the prestigious Houston Ballet Academy. While preparing breakfast, Laura's mother agreed to her request, understanding that Laura had been diligently working on her cardio to enhance her ballet skills. However, as time passed and Laura failed to return, the parents grew increasingly anxious. Laura had never been away for such an extended period, and as she was always under their watchful eye due to being homeschooled, they sensed that something was amiss. Laura's father scoured the neighborhood in search of her, but there was no sign of his daughter. Growing more concerned, they reached out to relatives and friends, hoping for any information regarding Laura's whereabouts, but their efforts yielded no answers. With Laura still missing, they made the difficult decision to contact the Friendswood police and report her as a missing person. As the police initiated their investigation, the community rallied around Laura's family, joining forces to aid in the search. Flyers with Laura's photograph were distributed, and residents in the area were questioned in the hopes of uncovering any leads. The outpouring of support and love from the community deeply touched Laura's parents, as they witnessed firsthand the genuine care and concern for their beloved daughter. The following morning, law enforcement officers were actively searching for the missing little girl. Some officers conducted thorough searches on foot through the nearby woods, while helicopters were deployed to search from above. Unfortunately, no significant leads were found. However, despite this setback, the community remained resilient and supportive. Hundreds of volunteers joined forces with Laura's family to assist in the search for the 12-year-old. Over the course of a week, approximately 6,000 volunteers participated in the search campaign. Surprisingly, each passing day brought even more volunteers and improved tracking techniques, such as the utilization of infrared cameras to uncover potential clues. In a remarkable display of dedication, a search and rescue team, along with their specially trained dogs, traveled all the way from Dallas to offer their assistance. These remarkable canines, with their exceptional sense of smell, spent an entire day meticulously sniffing around Laura's home. picking up scents from distances as far as 800 yards away. The local police were working tirelessly, and their efforts were further bolstered by the involvement of the National Coast Guard and FBI. Initially, the authorities believed that Laura may have become lost in the woods. However, as the investigation progressed, suspicions of foul play began to arise. In order to sustain the search efforts, the community organized candlelight rallies and vigils in honor of Laura. Despite these collective efforts, an entire week passed without any significant progress in Laura's case. On Sunday, April 20th, 1997, the community convened at Friendswood High School to discuss the next steps. During the meeting, the police chief received a phone call that visibly troubled him, causing concern among the attendees. However, they remained unaware of the details. Later that evening, around 10 p.m., Laura's parents were informed of a horrifying discovery. Earlier that same day, a father and son, while walking their dog, stumbled upon the badly decomposed body of a young girl in a muddy area near a pond in Pasadena, just 12 miles away from where Laura had disappeared. The girl was found wearing only a pair of socks, leading the police to suspect that it could be Laura. Subsequently, the autopsy confirmed their worst fears. 17 days after her disappearance, Laura was tragically found, marking a heartbreaking conclusion to the search efforts. Due to Laura's prolonged time in the water, investigators were unable to determine the exact cause of her death and were uncertain if she had been physically assaulted. The tragic loss of this young girl deeply saddened and shocked the entire Friendswood community. Alongside the grief, there was also a prevailing sense of fear, as people worried that a dangerous individual might still be out there, potentially targeting more victims. In an urgent attempt to gather leads, the police began questioning sex offenders in the area. Despite numerous uncertainties, a suspect quickly emerged. This individual had been released from an Oklahoma prison just 6 months prior to Laura's murder, after serving a 10-year sentence for 2 physical assaults. At the time of Laura's disappearance, he was employed as an equipment operator in Windsor Estate, Friendswood. Strangely, he left work around the same time Laura went missing and returned 30 minutes later. When investigators examined his truck, they discovered fibers from his replacement floor mats that matched those found on Laura's socks. Despite ongoing efforts to gather stronger evidence against him, the man remained free, frequently traveling between Houston, where he worked, and Oklahoma, where his mother resided. However, it didn't take long for another incident to occur. Just 2 months later, on July 15, 1997, in Denton, Texas, a university town along the same stretch of interstate, a 20-year-old woman named Kelli Cox vanished. Kelli would typically spend her mornings studying at the University of North Texas and the rest of her day caring for her daughter Alexis. On that fateful day, Kelli prepared everything for her daughter, packed her bag with necessary items, and rushed out the door. She dropped off her 19-month-old daughter with a babysitter before heading to a field trip for her criminology class at a Denton jail, accompanied by her classmates. Kelli parked her car across from the police station and, as a precaution, hid a spare key in a magnetic box underneath her car. After securing her belongings, including her phone, in the car as advised by her professor, Kelli decided to explore the jail on a guided tour. Once the tour concluded around noon, she promptly left because she had an important test at the university. However, when she attempted to unlock her car door with the spare key, she encountered an unexpected problem. Despite having checked the key the previous night, it mysteriously failed to work. This left Kelli unable to access her cell phone, which was locked inside the car. In order to seek assistance, she walked to a nearby gas station and utilized a payphone to contact her boyfriend, Lawrence Harris. Kelli requested that he bring another key, since the one she possessed had suddenly become ineffective. Following the call, she entered the gas station to quench her thirst. Approximately 45 minutes later, Lawrence arrived at the gas station only to find Kelli's car still parked in the lot, but Kelli herself was nowhere to be found. Furthermore, the key box and the spare key were also missing. Concerned for her well-being, Lawrence searched for Kelli and eventually contacted her mother to inquire if she had returned home. Unfortunately, Kelli had not. As time passed, Kelli's family grew increasingly worried. By 5:30 p.m. that afternoon, it became evident that something was amiss. Kelli was scheduled to pick up her 19-month-old daughter, Alexis, from the babysitter's house at that time, but she failed to appear. This raised significant alarm, since Kelli was known for being a responsible mother despite her young age. It seemed highly unlikely that she would neglect to collect Alexis or make alternative arrangements if necessary. Consequently, a missing persons report was promptly filed, prompting investigators to initiate a search for the young mother. Their initial course of action involved interviewing individuals close to Kelli in order to gather relevant information. After successfully passing 4 polygraph tests, Lawrence was eliminated as a suspect. Surprisingly, it was a turn of events when investigators acted upon a tip that led them to a different individual, a man who had been a suspect in the Laura Sniffer case. Despite not residing in Denton, the gas station receipt placed him at the location on the day Kelli disappeared. Due to his status as a sex offender, he became a prime suspect, prompting the police to search his vehicle for Kelli's fingerprints. Strangely, they found none, leaving them without any further evidence to link him to the disappearance. It remained a mystery as to how this man, despite being suspected, managed to elude capture each time. Who was he? And what was his story? Unfortunately, without answers to these questions, the case eventually went cold, with no leads, witnesses, or surveillance footage. For many years, Kelli's mother experienced profound sadness whenever a body was discovered along the notorious Texas highway. She clung to the hope that one day Kelli would return home, but sadly, that day never arrived. Kelli's disappearance took a toll on her mother and stepfather, particularly as they had to raise young Alexis on their own. However, the most challenging part was explaining to Alexis that her mother was unlikely to come back and provide her with warmth and maternal love. Despite the passing years, Kelli never reappeared for her daughter. Following in her mother's footsteps, Alexis attended the same university, holding on to the belief that her mother might one day return. Throughout all those years, Kelli's family never lost hope. They continued to share her story and tirelessly displayed her picture wherever they could. Unfortunately, even after numerous efforts, Kelli never found her way back home. However, the shocks were far from over, as just 11 days after Kelli went missing in Oklahoma, another young woman was on the verge of disappearing. On June 26, 1997, around midnight, a patrol officer from the Bethany Police Department noticed a white neon Dodge left at a car wash. Initially, it didn't raise any suspicions for the officer. However, upon returning later and finding the car still there, his suspicions grew. While approaching the vehicle, he observed that the key remained in the ignition and the car door was ajar. Swiftly, he transmitted the license plate number to headquarters and ascertained that the car belonged to Tiffany Johnston, a 17-year-old. Upon inspecting the interior, he discovered Tiffany's purse and stumbled upon a phone number belonging to her mother, Kathy, who resided in Anadarko, the considerable 60 miles away from Bethany. Consequently, the investigators promptly contacted Ryan, Tiffany's husband, who was equally unaware of his wife's whereabouts. It was becoming increasingly evident that something was amiss. Ryan disclosed to the officer that Tiffany had left her part-time job at a restaurant around 2 p.m. on that day, excited to celebrate their 3-month anniversary. However, she was only expected to meet him at 11:00 p.m. On her way home, Tiffany had made a stop at the Sunshine Car Wash to clean her white neon Dodge. Nevertheless, when Ryan went to meet her later that night, he discovered no trace of her, and she was absent from their residence as well. Filled with concern and anxiety, he initially contemplated contacting the authorities, but ultimately decided to wait a little longer, hoping that Tiffany would return on her own. However, even before the police could initiate a search for Tiffany, they received devastating news. Just a day after her disappearance, on July 27, 1997, near I-40 in Gregory Road, searchers looking for another missing girl fortuitously stumbled upon the lifeless body of a young Caucasian woman. Upon the arrival of the police, they already harbored suspicions that it could be Tiffany, and their fears were confirmed when Ryan identified her from the photographs. Tragically, she was discovered wearing only a swimsuit, with all her other garments removed. Although the exact time of her demise could not be determined during the autopsy, it revealed that she had been subjected to physical assault and strangulation. Additionally, unknown DNA was found on her body, which was collected and preserved as evidence. In such a scenario, anyone could potentially be a suspect, and suspicion fell upon someone very close to Tiffany. However, it didn't take long to discover that Tiffany was last seen at the car wash at 6:00 p.m. During that time, Ryan was at work, and he had been there from 3:00 p.m. to 11:00 p.m. Analyzing the timeline, the police realized that it didn't make sense for Tiffany to have been abducted from the busy car wash. If someone had forcefully taken her, there would likely have been a significant struggle. However, the area where the car was found showed no signs of a struggle, and even the car itself was unlocked. Nothing appeared disturbed in the vicinity. This led the police to consider the possibility that Tiffany willingly got into the car with someone she knew and left with them. While the investigation was ongoing, a few days later, Kathy, Tiffany's mother, received a phone call from a man named William Reece, who she knew from her town of Anadarko. Although they hadn't met in person, William's mother was good friends with Tiffany's mother. He called Kathy shortly after Tiffany's death to offer condolences, but little did she know about the hidden secrets. As time passed, the investigation made no progress, and the case eventually ended up in the cold case files. With the ongoing murders of women in the area, the entire community began to question when this horrifying game would come to an end. Just 3 weeks after Tiffany's murder, another tragedy struck Lamar, Texas. Jessica Kaine, born on August 28, 1979, brought immense joy to her parents, C.H. and Susie Kaine. With a passion for sports, she held the position of drill team captain at O'Connell High School in Galveston, Texas. On August 16, 1997, after participating in a musical revue in Dickinson and attending a cast party at Bennigan on Bay Area Boulevard, Jessica failed to return home after a night out with friends. When she couldn't be found at home the next morning, Jessica's mother panicked and urgently woke up her father. They immediately began trying to reach Jessica. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to locate her, so they reached out to several friends who had been with Jessica the night before. All of them had the same story. Jessica left the party around 1:30 a.m., and no one had heard from her since. Jessica's parents became increasingly worried, especially when her father discovered her car parked near the Lamar exit on the freeway. Her belongings were still inside, but Jessica was nowhere to be found. Filled with concern, he immediately contacted the police to report her as missing. Search parties were organized once again, with over 100 volunteers combing through the marshes and brush on foot. During this difficult time, Jessica's parents found comfort in connecting with Bob and Gay Smither, the parents of Laura Smither, who had also gone missing. Despite reliving their own nightmare, the Smithers stood strong in supporting Jessica's parents and actively participated in the search efforts. They shared the concern of whether the person responsible for Jessica's disappearance was the same individual who had taken their own daughter's life. Despite extensive searches conducted by law enforcement in the community, there were no signs of Jessica. The police began considering the possibility of foul play and expressed a grim belief that finding Jessica alive was unlikely. However, amidst the ongoing search, a new story emerged about another case where the victim had managed to survive. On May 16, 1997, 3 months prior to Jessica's disappearance, a 19-year-old mother named Sandra Sapor had a disturbing encounter. She had stopped at a convenience store in Webster, Texas, off I-45, and noticed a man staring at her in the parking lot. Later, at a Waffle House across the street, she saw the same man again. He followed her to the store and offered to help her with her flat tires. Suddenly, he pulled out a knife and forcefully took Sandra into his white pickup truck. Inside the truck, the man overpowered her, tied her wrists, and drove along Interstate 45. Sandra, overwhelmed by fear, made a shocking realization that the truck door was not locked. In a desperate bid for freedom, she mustered all her strength, broke free from the restraints, and leaped out of the moving truck. Unfortunately, her daring escape resulted in severe injuries. Prompted by the urgency, she was swiftly transported to a nearby hospital, where the authorities were promptly notified, and the incident was duly reported. In October 1997, 5 months later, a meeting with Friendswood Police led Webster investigators to realize that Sandra's description of her abductor matched a truck they had previously searched in Laura's case. On October 16, 1997, during a lineup, Sandra quickly identified the man who had abducted her as William Reece. This raised the question of who he was and whether he was the same suspect from Laura's case in April 1997. William Lewis Reece, born on July 1, 1959 in Oklahoma and raised in Yukon in Anadarko, was one of 13 siblings. Due to his family's financial struggles, he had to drop out of school in the 9th grade and began working as a farm laborer. He had 2 short-lived marriages. In April 1986, William kidnapped a 19-year-old daughter of a Texas sheriff's deputy, resulting in his arrest and charges. However, he was released on bail. Just a month later, while still out on bond, he physically assaulted another woman, leading to another arrest. He faced trial for both crimes, was found guilty, and received a 25-year prison sentence. However, he appealed his conviction, and a criminal court reviewed his case, identifying procedural errors that resulted in a reduction of his sentence. He was granted parole in October 1996, approximately 9.5 years into his sentence. This release occurred just 6 months before Laura's disappearance. After leaving prison, William moved into his mother's home in Anadarko, Oklahoma. Returning to the case, William was promptly arrested in October 1997 and charged with kidnapping Sarah Sapor. He pleaded not guilty and was incarcerated, but he was still not linked to the murders of the other girls. Despite his denial of kidnapping Sarah and slashing her tires, investigators remained determined to establish a connection between him and Laura's murder. Deputy Chief Josh Rogers made a significant discovery while searching William's apartment. Among the items found was a multicolored horse blanket, which matched the colors on one of Laura's socks. Despite finding fibers from Laura's socks on William's floor mats, the district attorney, DA, at the time did not believe it was enough evidence to charge him with Laura's murder. However, the determined Friendswood detectives continued their investigation. They delved into records to trace William's movements during the previous summer and uncovered potential connections to other unsolved cases. Their dedication to solving these mysteries was unwavering. The investigation took an intriguing turn when investigators found a fuel bill in Denton on the same date and location as Kelli Cox's disappearance. This was the first time Kelli's mother, Jan, had heard about William, and now Denton police had him on their radar as well. Further records revealed that William had used a payphone in the town where Tiffany's body was discovered less than an hour after she went missing. Additionally, the owner of a car wash confirmed that William was a frequent customer upon seeing his picture. This new evidence made William the primary suspect in Tiffany's case too. The jury wasted no time in reaching a guilty verdict, and in 1998, William was convicted and sentenced to 60 years for kidnapping Sandra. Finally, after a year, the community felt a sense of relief knowing that William was behind bars. However, Laura's case, as well as Tiffany's, Kelli's, and Jessica's cases, officially remained unsolved. While residing in Oklahoma, Kathy, the mother of Tiffany, never ceased her efforts to urge investigators to solve her daughter's murder. It took over 10 years for Kathy's persistent calls to finally receive a response. In 2012, retired police chief Lynn Williams joined the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation's cold case team and took on the task of investigating Tiffany's case. Within the evidence box, Lynn discovered DNA evidence from Tiffany's body that had been meticulously preserved throughout the years. Despite 2 unsuccessful tests, Wendy Duke, the supervising criminologist at the OSBI Cold Case Unit, uncovered 2 samples from Tiffany's body that had not been fully utilized in previous testing. Remarkably, she managed to develop a partial male profile from these samples. Duke meticulously compared the known profiles to find a match, and as the team eliminated suspects one by one, they made a shocking discovery. The perpetrator behind Tiffany's murder turned out to be none other than William Reece, an individual connected to Tiffany's family who had even expressed grief over her death. This revelation prompted the Oklahoma District Attorney to believe that there was enough evidence to charge William with Tiffany's murder. After enduring years of waiting, Kathy finally found some solace as justice appeared to be within reach. Oklahoma law enforcement shared crucial information with Texas investigators, including the Texas Rangers, who were eager to collaborate with William Reece in order to solve their cases. They made a visit to William in prison, and surprisingly, he agreed to further discussions on the condition that the death penalty would be taken off the table. In exchange for his cooperation in resolving the cases, authorities agreed to this condition. In February 2016, William Reece was transferred from prison to the Friendswood jail after agreeing to provide information regarding 3 Texas cases. Authorities also accompanied him to a remote field south of Friendswood, where he claimed to have disposed of Kelli Cox remains. The police dedicated extensive time to working with William, both in jail and out in the field, in their search for Kelli's remains. During this period, he began divulging details to investigators about his encounter with Kelli in Denton. According to William, they had a confrontation in a gas station parking lot after he accidentally bumped into her, causing her to spill her soda on him. During the interview, William confessed to killing Kelli, but there was another shocking revelation. He also disclosed to investigators what happened to Laura on that rainy morning in Friendswood. William claimed that Laura died instantly after he accidentally struck her with his truck. However, he later altered his story, stating that Laura actually survived. According to him, when he attempted to silence her cries, he accidentally broke her neck. Upon examining William's inconsistent statements and behavior, Mary Ellen O'Toole, a retired FBI profiler, suggested that he displayed traits of psychopathy. She believed that William derived pleasure from the attention he received from law enforcement and the disruption to his routine. During the ongoing search for remains, William continued to confess to each murder, providing specific details about Jessica and Tiffany's cases and disclosing the various locations where he buried their bodies. In March 2016, after 25 days of determined excavation guided by William, a breakthrough occurred. Jessica's remains were discovered at a site in a Houston pasture. However, her parents requested privacy to process the news and lay their daughter to rest. The discovery of Jessica's remains significantly bolstered the credibility of William's statements, reigniting the search for Kelli with renewed determination. After 2 more weeks of painstaking effort, Kelli's remains were successfully located at a burial site in Brazoria County. This was an incredibly painful moment for the families who still clung to hope that their daughters might return alive. In July 2016, Reece was extradited from Texas to Oklahoma to stand trial for Johnston's murder. The trial commenced on April 21, 2017, but Reece's defense team filed a motion for a change of venue due to asbestos contamination in the courthouse. An independent examination confirmed the hazardous condition of the building, leading to an adjournment of the trial until June 2019. Meanwhile, Texas prosecutors announced their intention to extradite Reece to their state for the trials related to Laura Kelly and Jessica's murders once the Oklahoma trial concluded. Tiffany's trial, which had been indefinitely postponed, resumed in May 2021 at the Oklahoma County District Court. On May 28, 2021, the jury found Reece guilty. The judge was straightforward and direct in his words. On August 19, 2021, he handed down a death sentence to the perpetrator for the abduction and murder of Tiffany, despite William's cooperation with law enforcement. This harsh punishment was due to his confession, containing partially false information, and his failure to disclose his true motives and accurate details of the crime. After being convicted in Oklahoma, William faced another trial in Texas in March 2022 for the murders of Laura Smither, Kelli Cox, and Jessica Kaine. It came as no surprise when he pleaded guilty to all three murders, and the judge delivered the final blow by sentencing him to life imprisonment in June 2022. Justice has finally caught up with him for the devastating crimes he committed against these innocent lives. For years, four families have longed for answers about their missing loved ones, enduring the agony of uncertainty. The person responsible for these crimes callously kept these secrets hidden, only revealing them when it served his own motives. It is disheartening to witness such selfishness. Now, we can only hope that armed with the truth, the families can begin the journey of healing. Providing their loved ones with a proper burial, long overdue, may offer some solace after enduring years of pain.